we go. Welcome back to Talk It Up Podcast. Today's guest, Jacob Morales. How you doing, my brother?
Doing good, brother.
Dude, I'm so glad to have you in here. You were telling me, because we talked a little bit before we started the episode about how you wrote me to even be on the podcast. I feel like you should say that again.
Okay, so I went to go help a friend.
Go take a bit closer.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, I went to help a friend. I took him a couch up in Albuquerque, and well, you know, we're hanging out and chilling. I had a few drinks, and it was funny because I was watching one of your podcasts there, and I was like, you know what? I want to be on his podcast. So I was like, Facebook, boom, message sent, and I was like, okay, cool. And then you responded right away.
Yeah. Damn, you're making me sound like I'm like thirsty or something.
No, it was just it was more like, I guess you happened to be on your phone. That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh damn, that was quick.
Yeah. And so when you were telling me that story, I can now see it from your perspective. I'm sure you're like, wait, did I just like book a spot like on the moment?
Yeah,
like I watched it, wrote them, and then now I'm going to be on it.
Yeah, it wasn't until the next day. Like the next day, I'm like, did I really do that? Am I really prepared for this? I don't know. Let's go. You know what? I'm a man of my word. I'm gonna go. Let's do it.
There you go, man. No, I was excited to have you. Like I was telling you before, I want to have people on that I think will have good conversations, but also people right now, it's mostly people that I already know, but I like having people on that I have like a gap of time with, because it's like, it's always cool to catch up with stuff. And then if it's a complete stranger, which eventually probably will happen at some point, right? If this goes well, I'm nervous that once they get on the podcast, like, you know, when you think you know someone and then they're just weird, I'm like, God, I'm gonna have to be really good at like dealing with weird situations.
Yeah. And this is good because like you said, passive time, like, I don't know how many years it's been. It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah. It's, we go back, like back in the day, our crowd would always do bonfires a lot. Yep. And we were kind of talking about that a little bit a second ago before we started recording, but that was the vibe that I wanted the podcast to be, because we were all hanging out at a bonfire one day and everyone was just getting along. And I'm like, what a cool moment. Like everyone's different cultures, ethnicities. There's a weird younger kid. There's a strange older guy for some reason at every bonfire. And there's us in the middle. And I'm like, everyone just kind of hangs out and just bonds. And there isn't a whole lot of tension. And I'm like, is it the fire? Is it the alcohol? Is it both? Like, and so that's why I wanted to do the podcast, because I'm like, that's a cool vibe. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And it's Las Cruces. Las Cruces is a melting pot. And
yeah, sure.
I mean, you go to a bonfire, you're going to get every crowd come out there. So you have, you know, like college kids. That was kind of like us. I mean, some people were younger. It wasn't, you know, that was frowned upon, quote unquote frowned upon, but they showed up. We kept them away from us. But there was college kids, you know, it could be cholos. I mean, we were talking about a bonfire one time where it was like, we brought pallets upon pallets out there. And like, I mean, there was like, we used to burn like, I don't know, 20 pallets a night.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that.
Remember one time we burned a boat? Were you there for that?
Yeah.
I forgot whose boat it was.
With the fiberglass going everywhere.
Some guy was like, let's just burn it. And I'm like, what? I remember beds, couches, people just bring stuff.
We burned a shack. Somebody brought like a little mini like shed out there. It was a wood shed, and they were like, let's burn it. And we burnt it.
I think people in big cities don't realize how much fun that is. Because I know people that have visited. I have a friend from North Carolina or South Carolina, and he came to visit, and we took him to a bonfire, and he's like, dude, this is what you guys do out here? I'm like, well, our crowd, not everyone does, but it made me realize, I'm like, oh, this isn't even an option like in a bigger city, because they don't have desert areas like us.
They don't got places to go where they can actually just do stuff like this. And even us, we had to find a specific area, because like we had like the pit, and the pit would get popped all the time. There would always be LCPD showing up.
I wonder if that's still a thing. You think people still go out there?
No, because it's a police station, fire station right there. Like to get out to where,
like, we'll show these kids.
Yeah, so
we're gonna build a fire. We're gonna a fire station.
And I might get in trouble for saying this, but there's a spot. I mean, if you don't know where it is, you don't know where it is, but it's called the end of the road.
Oh yeah.
Now, remember that we party at the end of the road.
Don't tell people in case it could still be a place we go to.
It is because I'm not telling you how to get there. I'm just saying that's the spot we used to go. Yeah. I remember we'd be at a house party. And house party get popped by LCPD, whatever. Oh, you guys need to go. You mind if we take our alcohol with us? Like we're all of age. Let's take my alcohol with us. All right, yeah, fine, whatever. We'd be walking out with like cases of beer and bottles and coolers and all kinds of stuff. And they'll be like, hey, where are you guys going? And I used to tell them all the time, yeah, hey, we're going to the end of the road. If you know where it's at, yeah, meet us there. And like leave. And the cops would be like, where the hell's the end of the road? You know, like, is that a house party? Is
some
that
sort of metaphor? Find me where the light shines the brightest.
Yeah. And it's crazy because every time, like, you can go every like Thursday through Saturday, there would always be a party out there.
Yeah, I remember going out there sometimes with some other people there, and we're like, hey, this is our spot, man. Like, even though it's like a public desert, anyone can go there. This is our spot, and we'd like fight to get our spot back.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was like the pit guys. They were like, that was like, we're the pit. This is our crew. This is where we're at. And
I remember so strange. So I kind of had like, I have a lot of different friends. So I had different circles of friends. And I really love going to the bonfire areas. And we had our own little group that would all go out there. Yep. But every now and then I would bring some friends from like other circles. Like, what are you doing? I'm going to a bonfire. You want to go? They bring them out there. And like most of my friends would always be like, who do you fucking hang out with, man? Like, I remember the first time I brought one of my friends, and I'll leave him out of the story just in case. I brought him out there. And he goes, man, he asked me before he went, like, hey, what is it like? I'm like, this is a bunch of chill people hanging out, nothing crazy. We pull up to go to the bonfire, and Buddy is shooting a propane tank with a rifle, like in the bonfire. He threw it in the bonfire, and he's trying to shoot it with a rifle
so it could go
explode.
Off. Yeah.
And then my buddy's like, what is going on? That guy's out of his mind. I'm like, oh, like I should have prepped him for like this crowd.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, to me, this isn't that weird. I've seen Buddy do weirder stuff. But to him, he's just like, dude, this guy's going to murder us probably.
Yeah. Well, if you ever met Buddy, it's like, oh, damn.
Yeah, it's like a normal thing.
Yeah. But then it's like, oh, yeah, our crew out there, we would always do crazy stuff. Like when he was like, oh, it's not that, you're not crazy. I was like, I never tell anybody it's not crazy. I'll be like, if you want to go out here, it's going to be crazy.
See, that's what I should have done. I think my version of that was like, I was desensitized. So to me, I was like, this is just like the weekend. This is just kind of what we do.
And you were trying to get them to go. You're not trying to get them not to go. That's probably what it was too.
Yeah, I think, you sugarcoat things a lot. We do that as people all the time. I try to be as honest as I can, but I think back then that was my honest. To me, I was like, this isn't that weird to me.
Well, it wasn't. And we did that. That was like a daily occurrence. I hate to say, like, that was kind of like we were always doing something.
Some of my wildest memories were at bonfires out there, man. Just some crazy stories, like fights. I was getting in fights all the time. And when I look back, I'm like, I'll take the good parts of those memories, but there's definitely some bad ones there that I was like, I should have been home studying or something, doing something productive.
Those days where you're like, oh yeah, I'm in college. I can go to class hungover, and then you be out there till 6 a.m. and then you be going to class still kind of drunk. Yeah,
I don't remember the last time I've done anything hungover. Like, cause I'm so good with my drinking now that I back in the day, you're kind of like what you said, like, oh, I'll push through the day.
Yeah.
And so you just be all hungover, just trying to make work and
I can tell you right now, I have no idea how we did it. Like I when I did get hungover, I was like, I'm in bed for like 12 hours. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine like, well, I have to go to work. Like, no.
Yeah. I don't think I could do it anymore.
No.
I mean, maybe, but I don't even want to, man. I don't even like feeling that way.
No. And even now, like I've cut back drinking to very minimal, if any at all.
How come? What inspired that?
Health issues once. Yeah. And there was probably like hanging out with people and drinking stopped being fun in a sense. But then it was just because it was the quality of people. It wasn't the same people I was used to from back in the day. It's like these new people and they're just not fun to drink with. And on top of that, I don't drink alone. I'm a social person. Like if I'm going to drink, I'm usually, it's not peer pressured more per se, but it's like, oh, you're drinking, I'm down to drink. So, okay, well, let's drink together because now I'm not drinking alone.
Yeah, it kind of is a peer pressure thing, though, if you think about it. But it's like a social thing, right? Like you know how many times I've gone somewhere and been like, I'm not drinking tonight. And then you run into a friend, like, just have a drink with me. You're not going to make me drink by myself, are you? And then you're like, okay.
Okay, that's peer pressure. Because then I've had friends like that. They're like, well, I'll pay. And I'm like, well, I'm broke. Yeah.
That works out.
Yeah.
That works out.
Yeah. I was like,
good exchange.
I don't have to pay for, well, I'm down. Hell yeah. And so we go and drink and that's usually like, that's at bars. I had to say that's at bars. But like when it was at you're out there, in the middle of nowhere in the desert having a bonfire. I mean, whatever you brought is what you brought.
Yeah.
So once the alcohol's out, usually all the people that were like, I'm only here for the alcohol, they leave. And then the rest of people who are there were there and we're just,
unless PK's there, and then you get to slap his wine bag.
Slap the sack. Yeah, that's tradition, man.
And then drink some of his wine.
But you got to get down on one knee. I don't know if he ever made you do that, but I had to.
I never did the one knee, man.
I was like old school when it came to it. Like,
people were listening. They're like, what do you mean a wine bag? It was a boxed wine. He would buy boxed wine, but then just take the bag out of the wine and then just carry it around.
It would just get hotter and hotter the more he had it out. But it was just, that was kind of tradition. You slap it and take a drink.
Take a little drink.
You're good to go.
And all the people that didn't know him, like, he wore a kilt. And they're like, what's up with that dude with a bag of wine? Just like,
right. Like,
I'm like, go ask him for some and see what happens.
Yeah. And I was like, go ask him his name. And then that was always the one where people were like, go ask him his name. I was like, yeah, that's PK.
Dude named Pumpkin with a bag of wine and you have to slap it to get a drink.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah. Or if you bribe him with a shot. That was always a big thing.
Like, is it? See, I didn't know all the rules, man.
If you had a bottle and you wanted a beer, shot for a beer. That's all I was always.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when I look back at that time, man, and people that hear these stories, they probably assume that's the way it is still, which is fine. That seems to be what comes up on this podcast a lot. But when I look back, man, it's so like, but I think I talked about this in some other episodes. I think you have to live a little, man. You got to like, when I look back, there's so many moments where I could have got seriously hurt, like shot at, stabbed, beat up. You know what I mean? Drinking too much, you could overdose on stuff. Like I look back at that and I'm like, I put myself in such crazy positions, and luckily I got out of it, right? And not that we're all done. We're still living life, right?
Yeah, but that's called young and dumb, because you're young and you're dumb because you don't really understand the consequences that are going to come your way.
But here's where it makes me feel bad when I see dudes like the Facebook dude who's like the youngest billionaire ever. When I see stuff like that, or I saw a kid on one of those talent shows that they play on TV, those reality shows. He was like 14 and he was rapping and like he got all kinds of money. When I see people like that, I'm like, yeah, young and dumb works when you're the young and dumb one. But when you see all these like younger people making good moves, I'm like, God damn it. Like I should have, if I would have had this mindset younger, I would have accomplished so much more.
Well, yeah, probably. But also we were kind of limited to our circumstances here. Yeah. Like, because when we're from here, like everybody's like, oh, I don't know if you ever heard this saying, but we're from the city of lost causes.
Yeah, I've heard lost causes.
So, I mean, the New Mexico is the land of entrapment. That's another one.
Yeah. Why? Damn, we got two bad nicknames.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of the land of enchantment, it's entrapment. And then it's one of those that sticks with you. And then you can go anywhere else. I've traveled. I've been to San Diego. I've been to Houston. I was in Denver for a little bit. Houston, I was actually there for 2 years, and then Albuquerque. But here is home. Yeah. And no matter where I went, I came back here and this was home. And unfortunately, it was pretty much nothing changed since I left. Yeah. It's like I left, came back exactly the same.
You think it's a small city thing?
It is. It's a small city thing. And it's kind of small town mentality. Yeah. Even though we're getting bigger, which is nice. But we're starting to get Albuquerque problems. That's kind of what I look at it. Because it was like, oh, there was a shooting the other day. Or, hey, there was a lady who just, somebody broke into her business. And it's just one thing after another. And this is stuff that you used to hear, big city stuff. Like you never heard this before in this town.
Yeah. There was it just reminded me of a story and how wild other places are. And obviously the story's about Vegas. We can kind of guess how wild that is. But I went to Vegas for the first time ever. And me and Laura were in a hotel room and she was getting ready. And so I was like, it's kind of, like when girls are getting ready, you're like, if you just stand there and wait, it causes a huge fight. So like, I'm going to stay busy, give her time to get ready. So I turn on the hotel TV and it's on the news. And I'll never forget this, man. The story was like, and it was real quick. There's like, oh, like a baseball program hits their first home run. And like, there's normal stuff. And then it goes, some man, and it had like a video. They're like an unidentified man. He jumped out of the window of the second story of a hotel naked. He had jumped out, landed, survived that, got up and then ran across the highway. And like someone hit him and the police have him in custody. And they said it real quick. And then they're like, and also cheeseburgers are on sale at Sonic. And they just like went on. I'm like, wait, what? They just like, that would be a huge story in Las Cruces.
Oh, yeah. That's an everyday occurrence there. That's probably why they were like,
that's what I was like, naked. Where have I come? Like, this is like, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And nobody, unless you live in Vegas, would even know like that story.
Well, I bet you there's a naked dude on the news every night. Like they were probably like, it's Vegas. I mean, come on. Somebody's running around naked somewhere in that town.
But that's like a culture shock. Cause I'm like, that would be a huge story in Las Cruces. And yet there it's just real quick.
Here it would be a huge story in El Paso and here it'd be in Albuquerque. It would be all like, oh, Cruces just did something crazy again. Hey.
And then we'd all look up who it was. And
yeah, everybody knows him. They're like, oh,
I know this guy, man. Why does he go to my church?
He was such a good guy. Like,
that's always the go-to on the news. I never saw it coming. I could have sworn that guy was completely normal.
That's serial killer stuff. Like they're like, he was so normal and so nice. And then he's like, has 10 bodies in his basement. Like, yeah, okay, he might be nice to you because, he doesn't want you to find his bodies in his basement.
That is pretty common on those shows. Cause I'm like addicted to documentaries about like murderers and stuff like that.
Oh, same.
And that's usually how it is. It's no one's ever like, I knew that something was wrong with him. All of them are, and obviously we're speaking generally, but almost all of them are like, yeah, no idea. Like that guy went to my kid's school, like he was one of the parents or whatever. And I'm like, did you see the one? There's a few of them on Netflix right now. Did you see Nightstalker?
I have not seen that one.
It's about a serial killer in 85, I believe, in LA. And this is back when like forensics just wasn't what it was. And they just could not catch this guy. And it turns, so this guy's from El Paso. It's a crazy, you should watch it.
I'm going to now because you're like, oh, he's from El Paso and LA being okay. Cool.
So he was El Paso and he would go to LA and commit these crimes and then like go back to El Paso.
Oh yeah. So they could never tie him down in LA because he was always coming back.
And it's wild how they catch him. I won't ruin it for you. You should totally watch it.
I'm going to.
But it's during the era where they just could not catch this guy. And I remember watching it and like the cops literally were just like, waiting for him to murder again because they didn't have enough clues. We'll just
wait till he comes back.
Like, they would like kind of, like, they didn't say this, but you can tell in the documentary, like, oh yeah, like we knew. And I'm like, someone just got murdered and you're excited to get more clues. It was like a weird kind of thing.
That's if you think about any like 80s like detective story, you know, that's kind of how they were.
What about previous to that? It makes you really respect Sherlock Holmes. Is that guy real, or is that just a made up thing?
You know, I actually really don't know. I honestly, I feel like it is a real dude that worked for like what's their England they're like police out there. Was it like Scotland Yard? Scotland Yard.
I know I'm white, man, but I don't know about the
England he was a detective at Scotland Yard or something like that. Like I don't dive into it. Like I'm not a big book dude. I hate to say it. I look like not a big book guy. So, but I mean,
we're sitting in book chairs. It probably looks like we have a little reading session right now.
But I will tell you this: like the craziest story I heard recently was the toy box killer.
So I know a lot about that, but it wasn't recently. I knew that back in the day, and then for whatever reason, I don't know if they've released something on it. That's the TRC killer.
There's a documentary. It's like I don't know if it's a podcast or what, but
I've seen live footage of that guy in court. Like, and it's like he's out of his mind.
Yeah,
that guy's crazy.
But people then they were like, oh yeah, he's so nice and so normal, and it's like, but then he was doing just.
So for the people that don't know the background, there's a guy in TRC, New Mexico, that was getting the tourists, and he would kind of meet them at a bar. I think was the story. And he would specifically target people that were visiting the lake and that didn't have a lot of family that would look for them. And he would drug them and then take them to what he called his toy box, which was, I believe, like a camper trailer or something, right?
It was something like that. And actually, I think it was like a basement too or something. I don't really remember where they said they found it, but it was kind of, it was his
torturing these people.
Yeah.
Were they all women? Do you know?
Far as I know, yeah. And I know there was a woman that helped him do it from the one I was listening to. And there was also like, he used to play a video. Be like when you woke up, there would be a video playing.
Oh, that's some
and it would literally give you like hey, this is your instructions, and it was such a like nice, calm voice.
Yeah,
but like, hey, if you do this, you won't get hurt. If you do this or this, and this is what I'm going to do to you. And it to me, I actually heard that audio. I heard the actual audio that he used to play for his victims, and it made me cringe. Like it made me like
that would be my biggest fear.
Yeah, and it's like, and he tells these women like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing things to you. I'm sorry." And to me, I'm like, "Oh my god, this guy needs to be like put down." Like I'm just no sympathy for that type of person. That person's
evil. He died in jail of a heart attack before they got to like sentence him.
Yeah, there were cheeseburgers in fucking jail, right?
That dude was dying either way, man.
He was going down, yeah.
But that's crazy, dude. But to the point we were talking about earlier, it just makes you think like where the world was at, like how many murderers out there just like probably old and died already, but of natural causes that never got popped. Oh yeah. Because they had no idea how to, and recently because of all the cop brutality stuff, I've been seeing people talk about stats. I saw an officer talking about like something like 60% of crimes go unsolved. I'm like, what? That's over half. You're telling me over half the time you don't find the person? That's crazy.
A lot of times there's just nothing to go off of. I mean, like, and what's a crime too? Like, oh, someone stole my bike. Well, you just need to get another bike. I'm sorry, insurance.
Yeah,
that's kind of like where a cop's mind is.
How much of the 60 is like violent crime? I get what you're saying, but that's still wild, man. Like it's that's crazy, man. To think that like back in the day, I feel like it'd be way harder now. Like I wouldn't even.
Well, DNA will get you. And even though that I would even say that like a DNA, yeah. But I mean, honestly, I would tell you this nowadays. With COVID, everything like people were just like shut ins, you know, and like people were like stuck at home. I wouldn't be surprised there was some serial killer just out and about.
Yeah.
Because you never find like, oh, people just like they disappeared because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
Yeah.
You just blame it on COVID. I feel like that's going to be the go-to phrase of the next couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
See, COVID happened and everything went downhill from there. Yeah. The sad part is that's true a lot, right? But then you get, because COVID did affect a lot of people and it affected me in some ways. But I know some people when I listen to stories, I'm like, yeah, that's not how that went down. Like COVID was part of it, but it was very convenient that you got to use that as the reason why things didn't work out for something.
I was told was like most hospitals, like if you die in a hospital, they're gonna be like, because they get money for every COVID death or something like that. They were like, oh well, he died of COVID. I saw one. He came in for a pancreas surgery. What do you mean he died of COVID or something? You know, it's like
I saw one where they were claiming, and it's a theoretical thing. This didn't actually happen, but when talking about that, they were saying if a person comes in and they died from a shark attack, if a shark ripped them up. And we test them and they also had COVID, that's a COVID death.
It's a COVID death.
Yeah. So anything like that where they can remotely tie
the shark
COVID
gave
to
him COVID.
Yeah. And they, instead of putting it as a shark death, it's a COVID death.
Well, like I said, yeah, they get money or something like that.
Which I don't even blame the hospitals because most of the hospitals were empty. So they were having to lay off like people.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, I mean, I'm not saying encouraging this, but if I run a hospital and I'm not making any money, I'd check the box too.
It's a business.
Yeah.
I've always like, I did security at a hospital, and I mean, like it
that must have been weird at a hospital.
I can tell. I got some stories for you.
What is I'm assuming alcohol related ones are probably the worst ones, right?
Well, okay, we dealt with which SI, HI, and then I can't remember what we used to call people who were like high and like drunk, but it was like suicide ideation, homicidal ideation, and then of course drunks and people who are like methed out or whatever.
Yeah,
and unfortunately that's a big thing around here. And but actual alcohol is probably way worse in this area than meth. And I know that sounds really weird, just like be like, oh yeah, but seeing it in the hospital firsthand, yeah,
really,
it's. We had one day, I had 4 guys I had to watch. One of them was a suicide risk, and he was the first bed. The other 3 dudes behind him were all drunks that turned themselves in because they were going to go to the place, be like to sober up. So they had banana bags in them. They were all just.
What's a banana bag?
It's it's to get them sober and kind of get them hydrated. So it's like potassium and all kinds of stuff, like all the stuff that your body. Yeah, much. It's all straight IV. So it's like it's hanging and it's yellow. It's banana bag. Well, these 3 dudes, I'm watching them, and I'm one guy watching 4 people. So the guy I'm really worried about is a suicide risk guy. So I'm watching him. The other 3 are behind him, and they're having a good time. They're laughing. They're talking. 2 of them are buddies. And so they're like laughing their ass off the entire time, telling jokes. I couldn't help but laugh either. I was crying, laughing. I called that whole hallway, because they were in a hallway. They weren't even in rooms. They were in a hallway where I was watching them. And I called that Margaritaville. Because these dudes were just cracking up, telling jokes, and like, hey, let's make the guard laugh. And
so is that how it works? If you're just too drunk, you go in there and they give you this banana bag?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, if you're hungover, that's like the best thing in the world. Like, go in, give me a banana bag.
I did not know that was a thing.
It's crazy. It perks you up right away. I remember, I can't say names, but I knew this one doctor, and hungover, but they had a big like doctor thing. They did it before. Like, so they all went out, ate, got drunk. They have to come in for their shift.
Thing, is that what you said?
Well, it's kind of like, yeah. Well,
they hung out and drink, doctor stuff.
Well, one of those things, like doctor stuff. Well, it was like one of those meetings where they all the doctors got together.
I guess like a company one, where they can mix and mingle with the staff.
Yeah. So this doctor drew the short straw. Came in, was like, looked around, grabbed a nurse, banana bagged me. So banana bag in the back room where the doctors used to chill. So
I just learned something new today. Banana bagging.
Yeah.
That's got to be like, we're going to make that catch on.
Hey, do it.
Banana bag it.
Banana bag. Yeah.
So what happens? These kids are telling wild stories while they're getting potassium.
Well, then they were not young. They were older dudes.
Oh, really?
So they were like, let's make the guard laugh. And they're just telling jokes.
How old would you say?
God, I want to say, well, they probably looked a lot older because of the alcohol. These guys were these guys were.
That's bad to say. I shouldn't be laughing.
Well, these guys were like, they just came off a bender. They told me the whole story.
So these guys were hammered. They weren't just trying to like.
No, these guys were so drunk, they were sober.
And they were still funny though?
Oh, they were hilarious. These guys were cracking me up. In fact, they were making so much noise. The nurses used to come up to me, hey, you need to tell them to quiet down. I was like, you try to tell them to quiet down. This is funny. I'm laughing my ass off.
That's funny, dude.
And the suicide risk guy was trying to sleep. He's all pissed off. He's like, you guys need to shut up. And he's yelling. And like, so I have this guy yelling. These guys get louder, laughing, telling more jokes. And I'm in the middle trying to, keep the peace. And finally the SI guy goes. And then finally the 2 drunks pass out. And I'm just like, I'm just there like, well, what do I do now? And all the nurses are just like mean mugging me. Like, you should have kept it quiet. I was like, I couldn't help it. And, but anyways, yeah, that's one story. That was like, but that's like something that was like on a daily occurrence we had to deal with. Like, one time I came on shift, and this one's kind of disturbing, but it made me laugh because like I thought about it later on, and I was just like, cause like everybody's like, oh, that's the masturbating meth head.
The masturbating meth head? Jesus.
Well, there was a girl, she got brought in. She's super young, but she was on meth. Like, and she, like sometimes they get like the nerve endings and they scratch. Well, this girl, I guess she had an itch, but it wasn't on her skin. It was down below. And so she starts stripping in the middle of the hallway because that's where they had originally put her. And they finally grabbed her, throw in her room because she just starts just starts getting at herself. Just starts just in the middle of everything. Didn't give a shit. This is what she wants to do. That's what she's going to do. And they gave her, shots to bring her down and all that.
Yeah.
But since she was on meth, it wasn't working. So she was still like awake. And I came in to the story. I came in like, cause I was switching shifts, and I was like, hey, where the hell's my guard? He's on the ER. Where the hell is he? So I go in there, I go look for him. He has to sit there and tell her every 5 minutes, hey, don't do that. Hey, don't do that. Because she would go and start trying to get at herself again. Hey, don't do that. She'd stop and just sit up And then she'll, and hey, don't do that. And I'm like, he's a male guard. I'm like, no, this ain't cool. I grab him, pull him out of the room, grab a nurse. I was like, you need to put a female nurse with this lady. This is not right. And I'm yelling. And then we leave. And one of the nurses I hear in the background, she's like, the masturbating meth head. And I heard that from like, and I just cried. I started crying, laughing.
Have you seen? It reminds me of Sons of Anarchy. You ever watch this show?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the episode with the guy that keeps like jerking off?
Yeah. And they have to like mess his hand up.
They end up cutting a finger off. I think he ends up with 2 fingers. I think.
So he wouldn't touch him. I hate to say it, but like that was kind of what it reminds me of too, because it was like, but this girl, like, she couldn't help herself. I felt so bad for her, like, because she like, I had talked to her mom too, and she was like, she showed me a picture of her. She was a very pretty young girl. And, and I hope she got the help she needed. I'll tell you this. I hope because there's people like come into your life like that where you're just like, holy shit. And it was like for like a split second. So it was just for a day or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, one of the craziest things that we used to do too is security there. And this is the ones that really will touch you. Like I remember my very first one of this was because we had to transport bodies. Because like if somebody passed away, you know, the nurses put them in the bag and all that. We have to transport them from wherever they died in the hospital to the morgue. And that was our job, which doesn't sound like it should be our job.
Not a security guard job at all.
It doesn't sound like, well, I guess we're going to, you know, security them all the way to, where they're going.
Just tell them.
Yeah. And the very first one I had was like a 3-month-old. That one, that messed me up. That was my very first one. And one of my very last ones was actually
3-month-old?
Yeah. And my daughter was 3 months at the time too.
Yeah.
So like, that was when I first started. That was literally like my first day there in the hospital. Like, I mean, I literally had one thing after another. Like I had code blue, I had a helicopter, I had someone pass away, I had this, I had that. Everything that could happen on a shift that usually spreads out like between weeks happened in one day. And that was my first day. And then I had a friend pass away, and we had that one hurt most because like we had to transport her to the morgue. And I remember when the oh my guy showed up, he actually came to get her eyes because she donated her eyes to help someone else see. And I was like, dude, that's beautiful, because she died of cancer, and really like she was in the hospital for, you know, there was no leaving. And I just remember that. I remember always seeing her, and I would go in there, talk with her, and then I get that phone call. Oh, she's gone.
Yeah. And
I went to work that day, and that was one of the worst ones I had to deal with.
That's tough, man. Even before that part of the story, that's like wild, because the trauma of seeing this stuff like every day has got to like, it takes a toll for sure. People don't understand that. When I think of trauma, they usually, and obviously children are a huge part of it, but I always think of that. Like, I didn't think of like what you would see, but I always think of like doctors, nurses and stuff. I'm like, they must see some wild stuff like every single day, and it must desensitize you a bit.
And the stuff that I'm talking about was like, that's just like stuff that happened to me. And the stuff that happens daily there is like, and
that's
with the doctors and all that I have to deal with
your friend, crazy. Man. I don't know if I would have, like, it's tough.
It was very tough, but you know, she would have wanted me to power through it and keep going. So? Well, yeah. Oh yeah. She was the strongest person I knew. Like, just, she was great throughout everything, even though she knew what was going on. And that one hit close to home. Like, I was just like, cause I said that was one of my last ones. Like I said, and then I left because like, I couldn't tell, like the stress was ridiculous there. I mean, I have some really funny stories. I had some really like crazy stuff happen. Like there was a naked guy who just like was running around through the hospital. We had to chase him. That was a fun one. Like I said, I went a little dark there, but like a little deep. But yeah, no, every day there was something different. Yeah. Every day there was like something crazy, and we were like not prepared. None of us were. Like you can't train for that. Like you just get kind of like,
even if there was training, like you just don't know until you're in the middle of the moment. Yeah. And when it comes to stuff with death, man, it's so you don't know. And anyone that's listening that's never dealt with that, talk to someone who has, because it's wild. And I know you have, obviously, you just told a little bit, but I have like a weird relationship with death, because I've lost a lot of people in my life, and I've seen some traumatic stuff, and I've been to some crazy stuff. And it's like, you deal with it differently, but you never really expect. You could totally train to like deal with it and still do terribly if you would consider it that when it happens. I remember one time, do you know where, what street is that? Foster? You know where Foster Road is? There's a Grandy's right there on El Paseo. Yeah. I used to live in apartments back there with my biological mom and my brother Colin. Mm-hmm. And we used to, when things went bad because they had food stamps, they would just throw it out, right? So we used to get, which you should do with bad food, right? But they had these, we'd have like a basket with some fruit in it. And when a few apples would go bad, they would tell me and Colin to throw it out, either one of us. but there was still some good fruit in there. Mm-hmm. So we would throw away the bad fruit, and the good fruit we would take to like a homeless person that lived in this bush that lived behind those apartments.
Okay.
And so we used to do that all the time. We made friends with those guys. And then one time me and Colin went out there to give them fruit, and we found the guy dead.
Oh, damn.
And we must have been like I don't know, young, 12, 13, maybe even younger.
When you're kids like that and you're experiencing death for the first time, yeah, that's
it was wild.
And I mean, I didn't see somebody die in front of me till like I was in my 20s. You know what I mean? Like my grandfather passed away, my grandmother passed away, but I wasn't in the room when they did.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
different,
being in
right?
the hospital, like working there, like you saw it like firsthand, and like it's crazy to like to find somebody who's, you know, no longer there. And
yeah,
I remember this one was not to put your story down. Sorry,
no, that was it.
It was there was
I've
this
told
one
this
time
story on the podcast before, so I didn't want to go too deep into it.
Gotcha.
But if people want to listen to it, I actually told it on the episode with Ricky. If people want to look it up. But no, keep going. You didn't cut me off.
Well, there was a lady. She had passed away, older lady. So ICU. We had a transporter. It was me and this other guy, new guy. Mm-hmm. So I was like, yeah, whatever. But he kind of like, we're trying to move her from the gurney to the slab. And as we're picking her up, her shoulder snapped. Like her arm snapped. And I was like, oh, and I dropped her. I felt horrible. Like I was like, oh my God, I dropped this lady. Oh my, and I'm like apologizing to her body. But because I was like the guy was like, oh, why are you apologizing? She's not there. And I'm like, no, she's still here. All right, first off, you know, I'm not going to get haunted by a crazy old lady.
That would make me feel terrible, man.
Dude, it scared the absolute shit out of me because like hers, like it like chicken bone breaking. Like, and it made the worst sound that I've ever heard. And she went, pa, and I just remember like, oh, I'm so sorry. We ended up picking her up again, putting her where she needs to go into the morgue. But yeah, it was just that, just like, it just, I remember like, it just, I don't know. That was one of the stories I wanted to tell you. Was just like everything happened there. It was crazy.
Yeah. Seems like how long did you work there? Jesus Christ.
For like 2 years or something like that. There was another one too. Like here's the most gruesome one I ever dealt with was a guy had died in a cherry picker. I guess he caught on fire.
What's a cherry picker?
You know, like it's like a machine? Like kind of, well, yeah, it's a machine that like lifts you up to go higher. Like it's in like a little bucket. Like
okay.
You're like, you know, like the power line guys use. But anyways, this guy's in the pecan field. And he's trying to get up into a tree. I guess the machine caught on fire and he got stuck up there and he was an older dude and he couldn't jump to save his life.
Did he burn up there?
He burned. Yeah. So when the Oh My guys showed up, hey, I need help bringing this guy in here. Oh yeah, sure, whatever. And I go and I pick up this, and this person's like in like a hunched position. And you can tell because they're in a bag, but you can tell. Go and put hands on this guy and he's warm. Like I felt like, I hate to say it, like I never ate like baked chicken after this for like at least a year.
I don't think the listeners are either, man.
Yeah, don't eat
ruining chicken for everyone.
It was weird because I was like, bro, he's still hot, and he's like, oh, well, that's how he needs to go in the freezer now, and that was kind of like the thing.
You weren't a security guard, you know that, right? Like literally, all your stories involve moving bodies. I think they tricked you into being like the CSI guy.
I wish that was like, but that was like 50% of the job was like moving bodies. The other 50% was like.
And how much of this did they explain to you in your interview? I'm gonna guess they never mentioned that.
None of this was mentioned to me. No, They were like, oh, you might have to land a helicopter, which I did that. That was the cool part of the job.
Jesus.
They were like, you go out to the helipad, the helicopter land, and you take a gurney so they can unload somebody from there. Which I actually have a really cool one on my Facebook where there's a photo of me. It was during Baton Death March.
Yeah.
And you know, people like drop like flies out there, right? You know, because of dehydration or they hurt themselves or whatever.
They're just
they get medevaced by the military Blackhawks. Like they're medevaced. So they come flying in and they land at that pad and they load them off. Craziest thing first time I ever did this was like normally like the regular choppers, they turn off their blades. Mm-hmm. As soon as their blades are shut off, then you can approach the helicopter. Blackhawks aren't going to shut off their blades. They're like, the guy's yelling at me, come bring me the gurney. And so I have to go underneath moving helicopter blades.
And I'm sure he's about to take off back there to do it again.
Yeah. Well, so I ran out there, gave the guy the gurney, helped the guy get pulled off of the helicopter. We run him inside. And as soon as he's like, oh, you're good. Okay, cool. I got to go. And he dips. And I have to go back out because I have to make sure the helicopter leaves.
Yeah.
So he takes off. And then we did this like 3 or 4 times and like in a row. It was crazy because they kept medevacing people from that out there. And it was cool. It was a great experience, but going underneath the helicopter blades was like never done that before in my life. It was like
you might need some counseling, man.
Yeah, I'm scared of fans now, bro. I'm scared of moving. I was kidding. No, it was cool. It was like just an experience.
Some traumatic stuff, though.
Like I got to do some cool stuff while I was there. Even though like I said, every single day I was doing something. It's not like there was not a single day that I did not have a story.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Every guard out there too. I wish that you can interview every of those guards because they had some crazier stories than me.
Oh, I would just need one, and then people would probably be like, all right, I'm done hearing about the body stuff.
Okay. All right, we'll move it. But ghost stories, hospitals, haunted. I swear.
You think so?
No, I can tell you haunted.
I'm not a ghost fan, and I'm like, you know what? And I have some ghostly stories, but I don't like the shows. I can find stuff, and I know people are going to be upset because I know some people that are really into the ghostly stuff. I have a friend that's really into it.
Ghost hunting. I love it. I love watching it. I hate doing it in person because I've done it in person. Really? I don't like it. No.
See, I'm too stubborn. So like there could literally be a real ghost and my brain would go like, oh, there's like probably someone messing with me. Like I just don't allow myself.
You try to think it over. Like, oh, no, there's a reason for that. That's how I am.
I could be getting murdered by a ghost and I'd probably be like, this is crazy. How do they make it look so real? That's how much I don't believe in it. But it's like, but I get it. Like, and there was a time where I did watch them. Mm-hmm. And so it was super cool. But so I don't
like the jump scares. That's me. Cause sometimes like I hate how they dramatic the jump scares.
My ideal horror movie is, cause it's like different types of horror movies, right? I'm trying to think of like the ones that when I say I like them, meaning they freak me out, like they actually feel like a horror movie, are the ones that are like based off real murderers, like or real events, kind of. Did you ever see The Strangers?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And because that obviously was a dramatized thing, but like that actually happened to someone, where like someone came in and knowing that going into the movie and seeing that, like you kind of put yourself in their shoes, and then they were brutal stabbings in that movie.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of my biggest fears is getting stabbed. And so that was to me when I was done, I would watch it again probably, but it was one of those things where I'm like, that literally freaked me out. That was a good one. Mm-hmm. Spiritual ones don't bother me at all. Like, cause I know, like, I'm not too like that. Mm-hmm. So like, Insidious or like those ones, I'm like, or the Paranormal Activities, they're cool. Like, I just like, they don't freak me. I can leave and sleep fine. But those ones where like they're based off real stuff.
Texas Chainsaw?
Every time.
I'll tell you that right.
Texas Chainsaw got to me for sure.
I went to this little gas station, middle of nowhere, Texas. Mm-hmm. That looked like just like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing. And I kind of was like, do I really have to use the restroom that bad?
Yeah, I'm good.
yeah. Like, I don't want this dude like, and it was crazy because it was a little town and like, it was just, it's sketchy. Like to me, like I was like, that's what I first
little towns are already sketchy. Like, even if nothing bad's happening, it's just like the vibe of it. And then when you watch a lot of those movies, you start remembering them and you're like, this is where I die at this gas station right here. Mm-hmm. This is how it happens.
Well, it was crazy. I pulled into that gas station and probably like there's this black guy that pulled into the gas station too. And we park at the pumps, you know, It was cool. We look at each other, give each other the head nod. All right, we're cool. He looked military. He did. He was wearing like the olive green, you know, and I've been security. So I was wearing like my security hat, like, which is, you know, just an American flag. Yeah. So we were like, oh, he probably thought I was military too, which I'm not. But I was like, yeah, you know, hey, what's up, man? And we walked in without saying anything. We walked in together, looked around, and there was probably about like 10 people in this gas station for no fucking reason. There was no cars outside. There was no cars outside.
No they weren't even getting gas.
Yeah, they were just like walking around inside. Like, I guess that was where the air conditioner was or whatever. The only air conditioner in town. Sense. But they all stopped what they were doing and stared at us. And like we looked at each other, looked back around.
I'm right there.
We walked around, got some stuff, walked to the counter, paid. Like I paid cash, he paid cash. You know, and we walked out together. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like, oh, you know, we need to do this together. Kind of like it was kind of like we thought it.
It was like a moment where you're like, all right, you got me.
Yeah. And then as soon as we left, like we gave each other a head nod again, and we went separate ways because we're literally going. He was going the way I came. I was going the way he came, and just separate ways. And it was just like.
There's something about when you travel, even whether it's a small one or a big one, it kind of feels like they know. Like I always I don't know if you feel that way, but I'll go like whether it's a big city like Houston, I've been there, or even a small one. Like if I'm going to Albuquerque and I stop and put gas like in like Los Lunas or something, and I get at the gas station, I feel like everyone knows I'm not like, you're not from around here. Like I feel like that vibe. In reality, like probably not. It feels like they know. And I get all paranoid and I'm like, what if someone's trying to, and like when Laura goes to use the restroom, I'm like watching to see if anyone like follows her. Again, too much movies probably.
No, but sometimes like, I mean, I hate to say it, sometimes you have to be that way.
Yeah.
And movies have taught us anything, like, cause I was in the film industry, you know, and I made a lot of horror movies. Like I got it like in like, that was for like
your hospital stories are making more sense now.
it really does. Unfortunately, I'm desensitized. I really am.
I get it.
And like, I was really good at blood and gore in horror movies. I hate to say it.
What do you mean by good at it? Like
making it look real.
Like from the camera angle, or you mean like the actual
camera angle? Well, even in person. Like we got really, like the people I worked with, we got really good at making horror movies.
Really?
That was kind of like our thing. And we got good at it. Like, I hated making horror movies. Like, I kind of like, that's probably where I go, like with film, like watching, I'm like, because because I know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And
I see what you're saying.
But I love comedies. I love action. And that's what I like to film. In fact, actually, I did a couple of things where it was like I was a day player on something big with a Forrest Whitaker film.
Oh, cool.
So that was outside Deming. We were out there and I was working with the techno crane operator. And if you know what techno crane is, it's a huge like crane with big weights on one end and the like $500,000 camera on the other end. And it like reaches out. So you get these big swooping shots with it. Or like if there's a car coming down the road and you're just like, you're tracking it. Because the way we did it was it was tracking. And then as soon as the car stopped, he got out and then he fell to his knees, looked up, and the camera went straight into the sky. And what they did was at one point they digitally get a cut where it goes to like a helicopter shot they already shot. And like it takes off and goes flying off into the distance.
Wouldn't it make more sense to do it with a drone nowadays?
Nowadays, yes. This is before drones. This is before drones. And in fact, actually, speaking of drones, I own a drone. I own a DJI Phantom 4. So I did some stuff with that too, like in the film industry. And
I've seen some cool stuff, man. It's wild where we are in this world. Mine
is outdated already. And I only had it like a few years and it's already outdated.
It just shows how fast the technology is changing, huh?
Well, mine was the first drone that was really like 4K. And it had a really good stabilization and good computer and all that. 25-minute flight time, which doesn't sound like a lot, but compare like when you're doing drone stuff, so if you have everything planned out right, it's plenty. But
what do they go up to now, do you think? Like a newer one?
I think there's like 30 minutes. I think you can get up to 30 minutes. It depends. Like the big ones, they can have multiple batteries. Oh, they can stay aloft for a lot longer. And they get used in film productions nowadays a lot. Just that's like one of their main things, because if they have like aerial shots and they're tracking something or tracking a person or tracking a car. Yeah. And then of course military uses that same thing. Even law enforcement nowadays are using drones. Yeah. That was a big thing that I was like, oh, dude, I really want to get into this because I know law enforcement just started out doing it. And I was like, oh, that'd be awesome, because I, hand in hand, I did security, but not law enforcement. But, I was like, hey, maybe I can do drones. You guys need, a drone operator.
Yeah. It's weird how that kind of like became a thing. And that's like, and you see some of these crazy angles in movies like you would never get before drones. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
I filmed a movie with, did you ever see the post I put on Facebook where I was a zombie? They did my makeup, my friend Anthony was recording, and this guy just done a bunch of other movies. He filmed like in Westworld and stuff.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So he goes around and he's done stuff. Nothing huge. He played like a smaller role in the background, I think. But he hits me. I run into him. I haven't seen him in a while. I knew him since high school, really good friend. And he was like, hey man, do you want to be in a movie? And I went out of my way to go to this movie thing and I had a bunch of stuff going on, but I'm like, no, this is on my bucket list. I've always wanted to say I want to do it. I don't even care if it's as an extra. I'm in. And so I go and he says, you're going to be a zombie. And the makeup ladies were so happy to see me because they were doing zombie makeup all day. And they saw me and their eyes lit up. And it's because I was bald. And they're like, yes, like all day we've been wanting to do someone with their brains hanging out. And so they're all excited. And I'm like, hey, I'm your guy.
Hey, there you go.
And I was the biggest one on set. So they're like, you're going to give me the sleeveless shirt. You're going to be. So I was the main zombie that attacks him. And you can see it on my Facebook page. They did a fake brain. It looks like my brain's hanging out.
Oh, nice.
It was a beautiful, beautiful makeup. It did like 3 hours in I did more in makeup, I think, than actually filming.
That's how it works. That's like makeup. Like there's like with the Grinch, he was in there for like 6 hours before even filming. Like
that's like every day, I bet, right?
Or I don't know if it was 6 hours. Maybe it was like 4, but it was like ridiculous.
That's wild.
It's a ridiculous amount. Yeah.
And then I was melting during scenes, so they would come and refix it.
The latex will melt. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the funniest part of the story though, is like I have one scene where I'm the first one I'm creeping up on him. He thinks he's alone and the camera angle is from him. And so it's a light. It looks cool. And then he turns around and my face is there and I attack him. He ends up beating me up a little bit and falling. And then I go to get him and he slams the door. Super quick scene. Took us a whole day to film it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, with the makeup on, I felt like I was a zombie. Like and he was
transformed. Yeah.
And I was like so into character that I'm bigger than this guy, than my friend Anthony. And so without even knowing it, when I would attack him, there's a scene where I choke him. I was choking the shit out of him, but it was on accident. So they would yell cut and then we were stop or freeze. And he was like, dude, you're still choking me. Like I at least 10 times. And I kept apologizing. Dude, I'm so sorry. I was choking the shit out of him.
You did MMA, so it was kind of like instinctive probably. And then on top,
also in the character too, but it was an open hand choke.
You're going to be a method actor. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. That's probably what you're going to be. Just
No. What is a method actor as opposed to an actor?
A method actor is somebody who actually like turns into the role. Like, okay, I'll tell you, best one is Christian Bale.
Okay.
Method actor.
Yeah.
Super method actor.
Yeah. Or not Joker, Batman. Jesus Christ. Heath Ledger's who I was thinking.
Heath Ledger, though, he locked himself in a hotel room.
I saw that.
To become, and he became.
Well, that's another, that would be considered a method actor, right?
Kind of, like, but he really dove into the role.
I don't think that I could, I think you have to really want to do something like that. I don't think I want to. Mm-hmm. I think I would do like stuff to be like, if it was fun, or a comedy. I've always wanted to do a comedy.
Oh yeah, you'd be perfect in a comedy. I'll tell you right now. And if there's anybody out there wants to, just go, hey, look, I'm funny.
Hit me up.
Yeah,
I'll be in a comedy.
I'll tell you right now, like you have a great look right there, and you would be good in a movie. You really would.
I want to be like a moron in a comedy movie. That's my dream. Where like I just do the dumbest stuff that nobody understands. Because I feel like I could be, and everyone probably thinks this, and maybe it's not true. I don't want to degrade any comedic writers out there that are actually putting in the work. But there's times where I feel like that would be a funny skit. That'd be a cool moment. And I think of these crazy ideas. And even I love Bill Hader, and I see him. He's a writer for South Park. So I've seen some of like clips on YouTube of him in the writer's room. And it just seems so fun. They're just kind of bouncing crazy. And Billy Hader always has the craziest off the wall idea. And then someone chimes in and then they kind of create this cool story. I'm like, I could do that.
Do it. Honestly, I'll tell you right now, you know what would be funny to do is just do like, you do shorts. That was one thing. That's when I was in film school. So I went to film school.
Yeah.
I was at the DACC and NMSU. I went to CMI at NMSU, which is the Creative Media Institute. And then at DACC before was CMT, which is Creative Media Technology. So, I mean, one thing we used to do all the time was nothing but shorts. So like you do a short is 15, 30 minute movie or even like skits.
Okay.
And you just film it. And that's kind of like the thing like on YouTube. Like right now with these are long. These are long. These are good conversations.
But you got to chop them up to.
Yeah. You got to.
Those attention spans aren't that long.
No, it's not. But with 15-minute shorts or something like that, it's usually like, you get a build up enough to build it up, hit the joke or whatever the heck it is, the action, and then that's it. And or you can even leave it on a cliffhanger. I loved doing cliffhangers. Like I hate them normally in everybody else's stuff because I'm just like, oh god, I'm so hooked.
Give me an example.
Where it's ramping up, and then like you're like, oh, to be continued. Like something like that where you're like, oh, you're like left at the edge of your seat. I want to know if this is my favorite character live. Does he die? Does he?
You ever see The Widest Kids You Know, that TV show? Mm-hmm. There's a funny skit where they're about to go to war. And it's like the big speech that the general's giving. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why it made me think of this, but the general goes, all right, everybody listen up. All right, we might be a bunch of idiots. And then he just stays there. And then one guy's like, but what? That's it, man.
That's it.
Might be a bunch of idiots. We're probably going to die out there.
Go get them.
But the way he said it was just this funny moment. And it's like my type of humor. So you have to go watch it for it to be funny.
Oh, yeah. But, I've seen that one.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. I picture like this moment like, some people are like that. I was thinking of this today, like good storytellers, right? Like, can a person tell a story? You could take the same exact story and one person could tell it well, and then a different person who just didn't believe it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I know some people, and I started like counting in my head. I know a lot more, and I won't put them on blast, but they only do a rising action. Like, there's not really a point. Yeah. It's just like there's more. It's like, and then he walked out, and then Sarah was there, and then Sarah went outside, and when she went there, she kept going, and she walked further.
That sounds like a Valley Girl.
And that's my story.
I swear, that sounds like a Valley Girl, like trying to tell a story like, oh my God, she was there, and then she just wasn't.
And then I walked here, and I went there, and then all of a sudden this happened, and then
we got gelato.
And there's no point. And in my head, I'm like, can you just make something up at the end? He'd be like, and then Tom murdered him.
Somebody doesn't. They don't know how. They don't know how to tell stories because they're just like, oh well, this is what I saw. So I watched her go outside. And I watched her come in, and I watched her go outside, and I watched her come in, and then she stabbed him. Like, you could have just went to the point where she stabbed him. Why did she stab him? Nobody knows. She just was pissed. And
you have to almost paint a picture to someone though, because it's like, even with like direction. You ever talk to a really good customer service rep? I think all my years in customer service is what helped me storytelling. But flip it around as the person calling in. Sometimes I get someone to stonewall, and they're just like, yes sir, no sir, okay, go here to that. And I'm like, I don't know what you're telling me to do, man. Like, you're not like good at what you're doing. No. But then every now and then you get the person that's like, how are you? Like, let me help you out. Hey, this is going to be not in the place you're normally used to, but don't freak out. When we get there, I'm going to tell you. You know, something that walks you through it.
Yeah. There's
going to be 3 buttons, a red one and a blue one. Those aren't them. Right in the middle is a yellow one. It kind of looks like a light bulb, like with iPhone people. Yeah. And I'm like, I love that. Cause I'm like, that's exactly, she's walking as if she was the one doing it and she knew those buttons would be there. I love that. And so when I became a customer service rep, I used to always do that because we used to get graded. I used to work at Converges and it was AT&T.
Oh yeah.
And we used to get part of our stats, like to get bonuses or to get promoted, was if we can get them to log into the app. Like that was a big thing I don't know if it's still the same way. And it was like right when the app came out and people were like, just do it. Can you lower my bill or remove this? I'm like, hey, let me walk you through it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get that stat up. And so I got really good at, first of all, convincing someone to agree to do it is hard, especially if it's an older person. Like, can you just do it? You know what? I'm going to save you so much time by showing you right now in 5 minutes or less, and you'll never need to call ever again. So go ahead and pull your phone out. Let me know when you're on the home screen. Like I do stuff like that. So that way they can, all right. They're like, all right. And then I would walk them through and then I did it. So I got really good at like storytelling and literally walking someone through the events that are going to take place because it's hard, especially when it's an older person because you can't be in the room with them. So you really have to anticipate if I was old and I had no idea what an iPhone was, how would this confuse me? If the answer is yes, then address that ahead of time.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're not going to tell you they're confused. They're going to be like, never mind, and then hang up.
Yeah. Because they're just going to be like, I'm done with this. I'm tired. You know, I'm going to have my grandkid do it. You know, no, I get that. I do. And then when you're saying customer service voice, there's a guy on YouTube, or not even YouTube, I should say. Like he had like I guess it was like Vine or something. I can't remember how far back it goes. But he was a guy going door to door selling window cleaner. Right? Have you ever seen that? What I'm talking about?
He was hilarious, right?
Oh my God. Like when he's on point, joke after joke, and just this and that. But he made me want to buy that. I was like, it was crazy. And then those are the type of people I love to talk to, and because their storytelling, because you said like their customer service, their story, that all works hand in hand. Because one thing in like the film industry, it's all about connections. It's all about making connections, who you know, how you know them, and the better you can get to know somebody, the more you can get them to do. I know it sounds weird,
100%.
but
it doesn't sound weird at all. Yeah,
but some people it does. It'd be like, oh, well, I don't want anybody to do anything for me. No, sometimes you need it, and sometimes
and it doesn't have to be sales either, right? If you have a friend, like I go with this, and we'll finish your story. But like even with the people I work with now that are struggling with substance use or something, that you want to get them on, you want to gain some sort of agreement because you want to help them, and nobody wants to get help from someone they don't trust, have no connection with, and they won't even give you the info to help them. Hey, do you need anything? No, I'm good. So you have to make a friend and kind of draw it out of them, and then you earn the ability to say, hey, come on, tell me what's going on. And then they go, all right.
You got to get their guard down.
Another place.
Their guard down has to get, like, because they're so like, they're, no, I can't, because, you know, or you're going to make fun of me, or you're going to this. That's everything. That's everything. I mean, that's real life. And that's good stuff to know, especially, I mean, I hate to say, like, people who like drunks. I've dealt with a lot of them because they'll be like, oh, I have no problem. There's nothing wrong with me. And it's like, but it getting that whole like, hey, yeah, there is something wrong. Like once you get that,
don't tell a drunk guy to stop drinking. It never works out that way. You got to catch him sober.
It's like you can't tell me that because, you know, I don't listen to a drunk, you know.
Yeah. Here's what I learned is most people want to quit drinking when they're drunk. You know, anytime, and I've been that guy as someone who drink a lot. Like I've been so wasted. Like I'm going to change my life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then the next day I'm like, I'm going to sober up so I can drink again tonight. And it's literally how it's a cycle. And so obviously I know that from experience. So when I work with people like that, I'm like, I'm not going to, hey, are you high? Are you drunk right now? Hey, call me in the morning, or I'll know to call them first thing in the morning or something. I'll know when they wake up. But it goes back to what you say. Like you have to be agreeable. Even let's take out the drinking part, like car sales. Yeah, anyone who's done car sales. Hi, I'm Will. Have you been helped yet? I'm good. I'm just looking. That's everyone's just looking. Everyone. Yeah. You don't know how many times I've sold a car to someone who's just looking because so then change that up. I know they're going to say that. So I need something to say for that, or say something different than can I help you? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I would like go up to people and I would just make stuff up sometimes. I'm like, hey, are you here for the sandwiches? Like I would literally just tell, they're like, what? Yeah, we're having like a sandwich party. Is that why you didn't come here? They're like, no, I was just going to look around. Oh, you're looking for cars. Like, oh, okay. I thought you were here for the sandwiches. We're like giving some sandwiches away. What are you looking at, man? I'll show you a few. I can even point you in the right direction. You know what I mean? I would just throw them off.
You got them off guard. Yeah. Because most people are like, oh, I got to sell you something. That's kind of like, they're like, oh, someone's going to come up to me because they have to sell me something. Yeah. Dude, if a guy would have come up to me like that, oh yeah, that would have got me.
Here for the sandwiches. I'm at a car shop. Yeah. And then you gain their thing real quick. And then they even like tell you like, I'm not here for the sandwiches. I'm here for a car. And you go, oh, great. So you got them to do it. And it's a little bit of trickery. But I never thought of it as trickery in the car business because all you're really doing is helping someone get out of their own way because people are there because they need a car. But when you go to buy a car, you think, is this in my budget? Can I afford it? Is this even the right car? My wife's not here. I don't make decisions without my wife. There's a million things that happen, and our job is to problem solve, not to sell you a car. All right, you're here. It's on your budget. What is your budget? Maybe I can help there. This isn't the car for you. What car is for you? Your wife's not here. Let's go get in this car and pick her up and see if we can bring her in. You don't want to do that? How about you take the car? How about none of that doesn't work? How about I give you my number? You come back when you're ready with wife. But you know what I mean? You get all the info and you'll sell cars that way. But if you just like listen to every person that says, I'm just looking, like you never sell a car.
No. And then of course that just looking means like kind of like,
yeah. Off. And I've done it. I've been a customer and I get nervous because I'm like, and I've been like to a dealership since I've sold cars. I'm like, oh, this guy's going to try to sell me a car, man. So I get it. But if the salesman's good, you know what I mean? Like I hope I was, you just kind of like understand each other and it doesn't feel like a transaction like that anymore.
No. But then at that point, you're making friends.
That's literally what we would say when we sold cars. I tell anyone that I trained, because I didn't come up with this. Someone told me this, a really, really, really good car salesman named Ryan. He said, make a friend. That was the first thing he taught me. So what do I do? And he's like, just make a friend. He's like, people buy cars from people they like. They do it. They could need a car. I mean, you'll get lucky every now and then, but they can need a car and avoid you and buy it from someone else because they don't like you. Make a friend, come back and let me know, and then I'll help you sell a car.
Well, I know that for a fact. If I was buying a car, I would go to the same guy that helped me before. That was
or he was a friend that's recommended. Yeah. Or if you're shopping, which most people do, and you're at 3 different dealerships, you're going to go with the person that, first of all, you're going to have your choice of car. But if there's any sort of hesitation, like, I don't know if I want the Hyundai or the Ford, that guy was cool. You know what I mean? You're gravitated towards that vehicle. If there is a deciding factor and you're made a friend, you're more likely to get that person to come back.
Just to point this out there, I would never buy a Ford. Throwing it out there.
Oh, you sound like most people that come on the lot, man.
Well, I come on. You saw my truck.
Yeah, I know. If you came in and told me that, I just wouldn't show you Fords, right? Like I hate when people are like, come on, let me show you anyways. Like, no, he just told you he doesn't want Fords.
Yeah, and that's my hint. It's like, I don't like Fords. Show me something else. And that's,
I'll never forget training this salesman. He was so nervous, and I don't know if he ended up being good later on. But I'll never forget it. He was like, and I would be the supervisor, literally, and I put in that in air quotes because I would come over and I go, hey guys, I'm a supervisor. My name is Will. And I'm just a salesman, right? But I was training this guy, and I come off confidently. People don't care. And so I told him, one of the things in the car industry is get a commitment, right? So if you go, don't come back. They would literally give your deal away. If you went back to the desk and said, they want to look at this car, and then they give you numbers and you go back. If you come back without a commitment, like an initial, what they would do, they'll just call a different salesman to go in there and take over. You don't even get a shot. So you got to get a commitment. And so I was trying to help this kid. I said, whatever you do, just get a commitment. And if they say they don't want to do it, you say, what would you do? If they say they wouldn't do that, you have to get them to give you a number, even if it's dumb. I want this car for $4 a month, 0 down. Get them to initial, they'll do it. Because what you're trying to do is turn a switch in their head to buying mode. Right now they're in looking mode. So even if it's outrageous, get a commitment. And I was hyping them up. I'm like, dude, they're going to give your deal away. I'll come in and take your deal. I don't want to. You're the new guy. I'm looking out for you the way people didn't look out for me. And I'll never forget it. I'm watching him like from a distance. And he goes up and he's like so nervous. He won't even look him in the eye. He's like, okay, so if I could do, you want to put money down? No? Okay. So 0, if I could do 0 down in like 500 a month. He went really high. Like he just said that out of nowhere. He didn't ask them what they would do, which is what he should have done. But he goes, 0 down. Like if I can get you like 500, you do that? And the guy goes, yeah, I would. And he looks over at me and he goes, you will? You'll do that right now. Like he was surprised like an idiot. The other guy's like, yeah, man, I'm trying to buy a car. And then he puts the little X and runs because he's so excited. I go get him to initial it. Say, hey, if I do this, you'll buy it today. Oh yeah. It was so funny. He goes back, gets it. And I thank God he sold the car. But it was so funny because I hyped him up. Hey, they're probably going to argue. Easiest customer. They call it a lay down in the car industry. But his face, like, you will? And he just like looked over at me. I'm like, dude, how dumb can you be right now?
Honestly, I probably would do the same way. I'm like, really?
Whoa. That never happens. He just had a really, it's rare.
Lucky, yeah.
But they literally call it a lay down in the car industry where someone comes in and say, I want this car. I know what it is. Write up the paperwork. And then you just do it.
So opposite of me. His first day, easy. My first day, not so easy. I'm just throwing it out there.
Your first day?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
Well, I mean, technically, that's like my hospital. But, well, actually, I got a funny story kind of thing about switch a little gears here with it of getting let go of jobs.
Put this a little bit more closer. You're good.
Got you.
Just in case.
Well, getting let go of jobs. That one was, well, I work for the county. I don't know if I'm allowed to actually say this story.
Just like you say it, it's on the internet, man. So if you're remotely nervous, don't do it.
Whatever.
Okay.
Well, I work for the county. I was a county codes officer. So, and I did that job. I actually loved that job. That job was
like,
fun.
what would that consist of?
That job was like we would patrol all of Doñana County, and Doñana County is like 3,200 square miles and there was only 4 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we would get calls. People would call in for like, oh, hey, like this property has a bunch of weeds or a bunch of trash. So we have to go to that property, take a look, see if it actually has weeds, have trash. If it violates, county code, then we issue a written warning and be like, hey, cut your weeds. There you go. Here's a written warning. And, you got 30 days to come into compliance. Once you come into compliance, just
I hated the codes guy that would come to my house, by the way.
Oh, well, if you're doing it out here, it's city.
Oh,
because city's completely different. City, yeah.
I'm sure you were great, but this guy was an asshole.
Oh, I was good. I hooked so many people up. Like people, I'd be like, hey.
I had one guy once. I was like, dude, I'll come back tomorrow. Just clean it up. Mm-hmm. Like two or three different times I had to pay fines, and it's annoying.
Oh, yeah.
Or I don't think if we paid it, but we had to go to like court and stuff and show that we cleaned it.
Yeah, you have to go show the judge.
You have to take a day off work.
It's a pain.
Anyways, yeah.
Like the guy who trained me, he's like, just be cool with people and people be cool with you and you get more compliance that way. I was like, I could do that all day. Hell yeah. So that's how I was. I was like that with everybody. I was very laid back, very good. But my biggest thing, like I really went after was people who were illegally dumping. And that's a big problem in Doñana County, Las Cruces, this whole area. Like every little township, like the worst one was like Chaparral or like Salem. And then like, cause that's up north. So, I mean, that was crazy. Cause like I used to go in like one day, I used to drive up to Salem, do stuff up there and then have to drive all the way down to Santa Teresa or even Chaparral. Cause that's our territory. That's where we had to go. But I'd be from like one end of the county to the other. And that's my whole day was 2 calls.
Yeah.
Just because I had to go from one side to the other and I'd be driving all day.
So people, are they just throwing like trash out there? What are they dumping?
Craziest thing I found was like people have dumped like cow carcasses, refrigerators, couches, just regular household trash, like tons of like someone cleaned out their freezer and just dumped all their food just out there instead of going to a transfer station and get rid of it. And like, there's so many different ways you can get rid of your trash and people just don't.
And what's the fine if you get busted doing something like that?
What was it? It was like it's $1,000. And then like, I think it was illicit discharging is like 5,000 if I remember correctly. I'm probably like forgetting it already, but yeah.
Not even worth it, man.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you right now, like illegal dumping and like, I'm a big advocate for that, even though I'm not with codes no more.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna get to that story. But, I was like the guy who would always go out there and look for your trash in the middle of the desert and I'd find information and I'd track back, oh, well, there's your name right there. Hey,
yeah, it's pretty true. I think of that. People just leaving like bills in there, huh?
Or I tell them, hey, you have till the end of day to go back, pick up your trash. I wouldn't tell them where it was at because they knew where it was at.
Yeah.
Go pick up your trash. Make sure it never looked like it ever existed there. And you rake it, clean it, make sure it looked like it was never there, like it never had been there. And I won't cite you. And people used to do it all the time. I used to get so much, like people would clean. Mm-hmm. They go out there with rakes and shovels and like, even if it wasn't their trash, I said at like 10 yards in every direction, pick up everything.
Just in case
like your stuff blew away, like everything. And people would do it and it would look amazing. And then guess what? No citation. I would just be, cause they cleaned up. And I made sure because if there's no evidence of, legal dumping, then I can't charge them.
That's being fair though. Like at least come fix what you messed up. Like there's a path to redemption there.
And I had a list of names. So if these people messed up again, forget it. I'm not going to even go.
Strike 2, buddy.
I have your information. I'm just going to cite you.
Yeah.
End of story. And, well, this is during COVID because I worked all of COVID doing codes pretty much. And one day I'm out because I patrolled everywhere. I patrolled all these spots, but I patrolled certain spots over and over again because they were constantly getting dumped on. And by patrolling them, I actually cut down the illegal dumping in those areas by I want to say probably about like 75% because it was a high number because like they would stop dumping there because they'd see me. So they stopped them there. Unfortunately, they'd probably go dump somewhere else, but at least those areas that were problem areas, they didn't dump no more. And so I would go patrol. And then one day I was like, gotta go do my normal patrol, but I was like, you know what? I keep doing that every day. I'm gonna switch it up. So I decided to go to the west side of town. And normally I patrolled like the east side of town because it's really bad. West side of town, it's bad by like the dam. Like people always throw trash there. I don't know why. People who are fishing leave their stuff behind. I mean, I don't care if you go out and party, fish, or like hang out in these spots, just take your trash with you.
Especially there's water nearby because kids playing there, there's glass, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard just to go find a dumpster somewhere and dump it.
I'm guilty of that, but I do try to make more of an effort. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't leave some crap somewhere.
We've all done that.
Yeah.
And I hate it. I honestly, and then I've gone so much better. So even now, like I would never leave anything like that. Yeah. I always take trash bags no matter where I go. So then my truck, there's always trash bags. So if I have to, even I see people out there in the middle of nowhere, hey, here's a trash bag, pick up your stuff. And I'll be like, hell, you pick it up, throw it in my bed in my truck. I'll get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because I just don't want it left there. And that was what I was doing when I was in codes, excuse me. When I was doing codes, I was like, hey, just put it in the back of my truck. I'll get rid of it for you. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as it's just not here. And I used to hook people up all the time like that. But it was one day, like I was patrolling at my normal spot at the west side of town.
Mm-hmm.
And I go this normal route. But one reason or another, I was like, I'm going to go left instead of right today. I have no idea reason why, but I was like, I went left. So I'm driving down this road that I normally don't go down.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this kid wearing, like, I remember him wearing a red shirt. He was a teenager and he's like just waving. And I'm like, oh crap. So I'm calling it in, telling dispatch, hey, this is what's going on. This is where I tried to tell him where I was at. I really couldn't even tell him because it's a county road.
Yeah.
So it's like a whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like my GPS on my computer is just not working. And so I'm like, I don't know how to tell him where I'm at. And I'm like, I'm going to go see what this kid wants because he's waving like, help. So I'm like, crap, something's not right about this though too. So I roll up to him, roll down my window, and little Hispanic boy, teenage boy, he was like, he only spoke Spanish, no English, no nothing. Oh. And he was white-lipped, like so just dehydrated. The only thing he could tell me was agua, water. And I'm like, oh crap. So I had an empty cup. I had a gallon of water. I pour water in this cup I handed to this kid. He just like devours his water. And then he starts telling me in Spanish, like, and I kind of understand him because I speak a little bit of Spanish, but not enough to get by or even have a conversation.
Yeah.
But he's saying two little girls, like his little sisters. And I'm like, oh crap, where? Like, where? And he's like, he just points south. And I'm like, crap. All right, well, I'm not going to leave this kid here. So I tell him, jump in the bed of the truck. And I start driving down. And as I'm driving down, maybe about 100, 150 yards, I run into two adult males hiding underneath the tree for some shade.
These are like people trying to get into the U.S. Huh?
These guys they're far into the U.S. already. But these guys are underneath this bush trying to get shade. And I'm like, this throws me off right now. Because I was like, I'm looking for two little girls, not two old men.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, señor, agua. And so I give them water. And I noticed that one of them has like a gang tat and like different, like they have tats. Like I can tell they're gang related.
Yeah.
And I'm like, crap. And I'm a codes officer. I'm not armed. And this is coming back from like years of being a security guard where I was armed. Yeah. So I'm like, crap. And I look like a deputy because that's the kind of uniform the codes guys have. So this guy's not doing anything, but he's like, hey, two little girls. And he starts pointing south. I'm like, oh shit, there's two little girls out there still.
Yeah.
Throw them in the bed of the truck, drive down, and about another 200 yards, I want to say, there's a mom and two little girls kind of hobbling down this road. And one of the little girls, I remember this to this day, like it's burnt in my head. She has like a water bottle like that. It's empty, but she's death gripping it, just death gripping it. Won't let this thing go. And they are agua, señor, agua. So I gave them the rest of my water and they all drank water. I had a gallon, which normally I would kill during the day, especially this was summer. It was like 110. Yeah. And like ground temperature was like 130 in the middle of nowhere. And so it's hot. And these people are wearing like thin leather sandals and nothing, no backpacks, no nothing. The only one that had anything was the mom had a purse and she had inhalers for the kids in them. And that was it. That was all they had. And they had nothing else. They had no sun protection, nothing, no hats, nothing. That was it. And I was like, crap. And I'm still trying to talk to dispatch, I was trying to call my supervisors at the time. It was all kinds of cluster. And I was like, you know what? By the time they get to me, it's going to be like over a half an hour, if not 45 minutes, just to get to me.
Start driving
because
back,
that's how far I was. Or it could take 10 minutes, like not even 10 minutes, and get over to where the 10 is and meet Border Patrol there. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, hey, dispatch, I'm driving here, send Border Patrol here so I can turn them over. Because like I said, none of them spoke English.
Did they seem nervous that you were calling for someone else? Did they say like, don't call anyone?
No, they were like so happy that I had found him. Like these people were literally collapsed in the bed of my truck.
Wait, so where was it? Is that what they were doing? Were they trying to sneak over?
No, they already got over the border.
And they just had nowhere to go?
When I got to Border Patrol, I turned over to Border Patrol. They had told Border Patrol that they had been walking through the desert for 2 days without water.
Jesus.
110 degrees, no water. This little girl, like I said, the little girl was death gripping, and like they were all dehydrated. I actually got in trouble too because they were like, how come you didn't call an ambulance if they were this dehydrated? I was like, I couldn't communicate that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I need somebody who can communicate with them. So, because they spoke, like, it was weird. Like, their Spanish was like broken Spanish, like enough to where I couldn't even understand them, because I guess they were from further south or something. I don't know. But so the Border Patrol's talking with them, getting more information from them. And they said that they weren't going to go to Las Cruces. Like, these people were going to keep going north. And where they were on the west side of town, if they would have kept going north past I-10, that's harsh desert out there. That's like, there's no water. There's no nothing. That's nothing but like rocks and mountains.
Did you ever figure out why? Like, what were they doing?
They were just told, walk that way.
They were walking for 2 days and just hoping that they run into someone.
Whatever coyote brought them over the border, they just told them, walk that way. And they told them, don't stop until they told them to keep going. Like, they were like basically left out there to die.
That's wild, man.
I told my supervisors this. I told them stuff like that. And actually, a lot of them were like, yeah, you saved those people's lives. Like, that's how I believe. I believe I saved those 6 people's lives. There were 6 of them. Yeah. And especially those 2 little girls were like, that's seared into my mind. Like, and the other thing too, I was freaked out because I was like, well, those guys were maybe gang tattooed. I'm like, so I'm freaking out. All this like scenarios in my head while I'm sitting there. And I'm like, because I'm not waiting for people to come to me just in case. So I was like, I'm going to make my own decision. I couldn't get a hold of my supervisor. So I'm like, I'm going to make my own decision. I'm going to go.
Yeah. And
that's what I did. And then on top of that was, I didn't want them sitting in my truck at 110 degrees. There was no shade, because this was around 3 to 4. So I get off at 4. So this was like 3 o'clock, and it's the hottest part of the day, and these guys have been already just baking like in the sun. So I get them to where they need to. The Border Patrol gave them more water, took care of them. They took them from me. I get back to my office. I talk to my supervisors, and they're just like, "Oh, don't worry about. Well, we'll cross that." And I was like, honestly, I was like, dude, whatever punishment's coming my way, because I knew I broke county policy by having people in my truck.
What rule did you? Yeah.
Okay, so
what would you have broken?
What they had told me was I broke county policy because I had other people besides county employees in a county vehicle, and I also broke state law. Yeah, but
those guys are out of their minds. What do you expect? Like, if you're in a business vehicle and someone gets shot, you're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna later on. Yeah.
Well,
they're in the middle of nowhere.
And the other thing too, I broke state law by having the 2 little girls in the bed of a moving vehicle. So that's what they originally told me that I got let go for. And what really came to,
you got let go because of this incident.
Yeah. Well, I got put on administrative leave. Like, they're like, hey, sign this. You're on administrative leave. Blah 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 blah. Okay, cool.
And they would never know this story if you hadn't told them. So first of all, you save these people's lives, and then you're honest enough to tell your work about it. Dude, you should call a reporter, like at the news station. This would be a huge story.
No, it's not even that. It's just they.
That's wild.
With everything that went on, like, because I'm not trying to look for any like fame for me. I'm just glad these people were alive.
Not fame though, but like, you literally got and during a pandemic, you got falsely like fired, man.
I did break county policy. I did break, and I'll tell you right now, that is a fireable offense. And I did. I told him flat out, I'll take whatever punishment comes my way, and I got let go for it.
In today's world with the social justice stuff, like you would have so much support, man. I promise you.
I know, but honestly, the only thing I hated was being let go. Was like, I'm not working, even though like now I'm like unemployment, and I got extended out to September. So I'm like, honestly, it was a kind of like a blessing in disguise, because it's a stressful job doing that, because you're out there doing that, and you have to wear body armor when you're doing that job, and you don't know what's going to come your way, and you're not armed, so you have no way of defending yourself whatsoever. Yeah. And we have a baton, but it's called a bite stick. It's not specifically for defending yourself from a person. It's from a dog, from getting bit by a dog. And you have pepper spray, same thing. Pepper spray is for the dog, not for a person. You could, if life or death type of stuff, but at the same time, someone pulls a knife, you're kind of screwed, because you have body armor that stops bullets, not knives. Then you also have if you did get shot, that's, you're by yourself, middle of nowhere, or you're by yourself, at a house, and your only lifeline is your radio, pretty much. And that's, everybody knew from when I was on the radio with dispatch, telling them, hey, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. So everybody in my department, like, they heard it. And a lot of people, like I said, you saved those people's lives. And I feel to my core that I've saved those people's lives. And, no matter,
sure did. Yeah.
No matter what happened afterwards, I accepted the fact that's what happened. And I have no hate or anything for the county. They did what they had to do. Unfortunately, it was letting me go. And, I'm taking this time for mental health, and I've actually gotten so much better because of, because I'm not like stressing about work. I'm not running around with like a chicken with no head cut off, and like, there's always a plus side to something crazy like that happening. I know that's probably like the craziest story, but that's what happened. That's literally that day was meant for me to go through that.
Well, you're an optimist. I think I would be a little bit more upset, but I respect where you're at with it. But we were talking about this in the last podcast about security guards, or 2 podcasts ago. Not that you were a security guard, but you mentioned like
I was
on a different job, not in this job.
Not this one.
But it was like we're kind of joking about it. We're like, where would because Matty B is he was talking about he was a bartender and like the security guards fought a bunch of people. I'm like, that'd be the worst place you can be. Not the worst. One of the worst is a bar. Because you're guaranteed to get into a fight. You're not allowed to have a weapon usually. And you're either going to get beat up or beat someone up. And then there's a lawsuit because you're a security guard that beat someone up. So bars are out. I would never do it. But if I had to be a security guard, we decided on a library would be the safest place to be a security guard.
Okay. Security Concepts has contracts with everything, like the city and all this stuff.
So what would you say would be the easiest place?
I will tell you, I've done security at a library and I've done security at a bar because of this job. Yeah.
Give it to me. Which ones?
I'll tell you right now, neither. Because no, I mean,
what happens at a bar, man?
No,
I'm sorry, at a library.
I'll tell you this. I'd rather be at a bar.
Why?
Because it's usually you're not by yourself. Because usually you and maybe 1 or 2 other guards, and the other thing too is you're armed with pepper spray usually. Because we did Dublins.
Yeah.
So Dublins, I hate to say, we were like notorious for macing everybody because you have a fight in front of you got into a fight in front of Dublins, you're gonna get maced. I'm sorry, like that's how we're gonna break up a fight.
What happens at a library?
Library is homeless people.
Yeah, that's not that crazy.
Homeless people and drugs, like those are the 2 biggest things. I had a homeless guy shooting up in the bathroom that I had to kick out, and
I think I'd still rather be at the library than the bar.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I've dealt with. Well, I was by myself doing that.
What would be the safest then if it's not a library? Or because here's what security guard job could you have where you're probably not going to get shot and you're literally just sitting there and go home?
Wastewater.
Wastewater?
Yeah, I was an armed guard and we did the wastewater facility here in town.
Plant?
Yeah, the plant.
And it's not a public place, right?
So no, it's not. No, there's no public. If there's any public there, you're
literally just making sure no one's breaking in.
Yeah, you're just making sure no one's breaking in. You're checking the perimeter.
But no one's breaking. That's not like a thing. It's not like an Ocean's 11 movie about how they're robbing the water companies.
It's a little scary because it's a little scary because like that is actually like a big on a watch list because it's like, hey, this is people's water. This is what people have to.
That makes sense because maybe like one of these radical people that are trying to like poison the neighborhood.
Yeah. Or if you really wanted to do something bad, like unfortunately it's wastewater. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. Then, as a security guard, you're like one dude with one gun for the entire facility, and I like to do overnights. I liked doing graveyards. I don't know, it was weird.
Yeah,
like that. But because it was like solace. Like it was nobody else was there. I was by myself, and I pretty much if I needed help, 911. Like, hey, I'm over here. I need police now. And they usually send somebody right away.
Yeah.
But it was me just walking the perimeter, my flashlight, my radio, and like my headphone in one ear. And that was it. That was my entire night. And I was like, I mean, I'm probably not going to shoot anybody and no one's going to shoot at me there.
No, probably.
The likelihood is very, very, out, like it's not going to happen. But I mean, we had to run off homeless people like that were sleeping out there and stuff like that. And I mean, I hate to say it, like everywhere you go in this town, some way or another, if you're a security guard, you're going to deal with somebody who's homeless.
Yeah.
And by dealing with them, you don't have to be mean to these guys. Like I did the food, or the soup kitchen.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I did security, we did it everywhere. Like I was a supervisor. They could put me any site that Security Concept had. And the soup kitchen was one of my favorite ones because I mean, people knew me.
Yeah.
Because they knew me from other sites. And I was like, hey, you know what? If you screw up here, guess what? I'm going to go, I'm like at a different site. I was like, hey, you screw up here, I'm going to go tell the soup kitchen not to serve you.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, no. And I really couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. But it was still like that threat was kind of nice because then they would act right at the other sites.
I lived in that shelter, man. In that, I don't know if they still, it used to be the El Cadito soup kitchen. And then it was right next to it was Hacienda del Sol. Now it's all Community of Hope. And then
it's all Community of Hope now.
And they have something else. But it used to be called Hacienda del Sol was the women's part.
Yeah.
And then there was a soup kitchen, and then the Gospel Rescue Mission was everyone else.
Everybody else across the street. Yeah.
And because it was my mom and my little brothers, we got to stay in the women's shelter when we were young. Mm-hmm. But it's crazy because I work in that field now. So I go and do events there, and I volunteered at that kitchen before. Mm-hmm. And it's so weird being there, like, because I'm on the other end now. Like I used to be here. I used to live here.
I'll tell you, as security there, they used to offer me food and I take it because it was good.
Yeah.
Like their food's amazing.
And it's like, I mean, it's a cool place. If anyone ever wants to see what it's like, you know what I mean? Or give back to the community, they'll let you go volunteer there.
Oh yeah.
And they do like meals for like Thanksgiving, Christmas and stuff. It's very humbling, man.
Oh yeah.
I work specifically with the homeless population. I love it, man, because it's like, I don't love that they're homeless, but I'm saying I love the interaction. There's something, the connections and stuff. And I feel like I'm talking about this on every podcast at this point and people are going to get bored of it. But the connection part of it, the more stranger the interaction is, like the more I enjoy it. So like it's, and I actually relate to homeless people because I used to be homeless. And so it's easy and they know that. You don't have to say it. There's a connection there where they go like, this guy kind of understands this. Like sometimes they've asked me like, have you like, I'm like, yeah, I've been here. Yeah. I'll never tell anyone unless it's relevant. But yeah, I love that going there because it's like, it's real humbling, man. We sit at home and we eat our meals or we go eat our fast food or whatever it is. Yeah. And then you see people here and sometimes they're just waiting. It's 3 and they're waiting till 5 so they can eat. They're literally like, as soon as they're done, they're outside and they're waiting for the next meal. And I'm like, wow, like it reminds you of like the luxuries in life that we have that we take for granted. Like this right now, like in an air conditioned room talking. Yeah. I mean, but I like doing things like that because it's a reminder. And it really brings you back to earth. You're like, oh, wait a minute here.
That humbling, like you said, it is. Yeah. And then you really don't, people take so much for granted. Yeah. It's crazy. And I don't know about you, but I've heard probably the coolest and craziest stories from homeless people.
Yeah, like, I've heard some wild stuff.
Like I met this dude and I don't even know why we were talking to him, but he was I guess he was part of like a traveling circus. And he did that like all his life.
It was my dream job at one point.
Yeah, I think it was like the down season. That's why he wasn't doing because it was like it was like winter. It was winter, so like
the roads are frozen. We're not going anywhere,
man. And he's like, I'm just waiting for another carnival to come through so I can just jump on and go. And that's
so he was literally like just hopping on other people's carnivals.
That's how he do it. He just like jump from carnival to carnival and just go from show to show, whatever. Yeah. And he was just a carny. That's what he was, and he was cool as hell, like cool as hell. But he was all telling me all these stories about like different cities, and he's like, man, carnival games are a ripoff. Let me tell you why. And he was like, dude, that box right there, they spent $10 on for all the toys, and you're spending $10 for 5 balls.
Yeah, like, and you're also like some of the games are designed for you to lose
always,
and so it's like but you just feel they're designed that you barely lose, so you feel like you can continue to do it. Like the basketball one, you never can tell, but they're kind of ovaled. Like it looks like you're not shooting in a full perfect circle. It's kind of ovaled. So you're likely to rim out a lot.
Well, that and too, and they're not normal basketball height. So you the height is taller. It's like 11 feet instead of 10.
Yeah, and you're good at it's right close enough to where you think you can make one, and then you just miss a bunch.
And then another thing too is people who shoot hoops all the time. They got muscle memory. So they're
probably even worse at it. Yeah,
they're the worst ones at it. So they're like, oh, I'm badass.
And they're the ones who want to play. Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, carnivals are ripoffs, but I remember that being a dream job at one point because of the traveling part. And then
you can see the world. Honestly, that guy, I said, he went not even just the States. He went overseas to do carnivals, and like he'd been places. And he's like, I've been doing this since I was a teenager. He's like, I've been doing this my whole life. That's all I know. And he's like, I'm homeless. He's like, this is how I am. And cool as hell guy. I mean, this guy was clean. Like, I mean, super clean, haircut, bath, everything. I mean, it wasn't just because he was
waiting for the next fair.
He was waiting for the next somebody to come through, and he was gonna. And I think he was trying to get to California.
Have you seen No Water for Elephants? That movie?
Yes, I have.
That's what it. Obviously, I'm sure they're not as graceful as that movie makes them out to be. But when I watched that movie, I was like, this would be so cool, especially like if you don't have opportunities, right? It's like, all right. Which is kind of ironic for this guy, right? Like if you're going to be, I'm not saying to be homeless, but if you're going to be homeless, what better way to do it than in the circus?
Exactly.
And the only thing that scares me though, is I'm like, these are the people putting these roller coasters up and stuff. And I'm like,
these guys who they usually find like the guys who like, they can pay like, a sandwich to, or like, oh, hey, here's $10 for drugs or whatever, just to set up that stuff. And like, it's crazy because like I've heard these stories from the guys that have been there, and I'm like, because
I always get on the rides and I always freak out, and every time I get off, I'm like, I'm never doing this ever again, and then I always do it.
Oh yeah, and then I'll tell you, like being behind the scenes, that's like, I hate to say security, you're behind the scenes all the time. Being like film, like being behind the camera, you behind the scenes. Like you see different worlds. A lot of people will never see these worlds. Like nobody will ever, like, I hate to say, like people will probably think the set's huge.
Yeah.
Like you're in this huge room and you're like, I mean, but this is a great room.
Yeah.
But
it's not as big as it looks on the film.
It's an illusion.
Yeah.
An illusion, right? And people that don't see past that, and they actually, the people who actually do see past that, like it's a world that just like opens up. It's kind of weird. And like you
said, I feel about Tom Cruise. That guy's an illusion.
Oh, he's like 5 something
tall. Yeah,
he's like 5 something.
I saw him on a red carpet once. I'm like, that is the Mission Impossible guy.
So I'm probably never gonna be in the film industry if I say this, but I was like, there's called Tom Cruise special, and my friends
really,
they're like, you bring like a half apple and a full apple just so someone can stand on, so you could be taller than whoever you're standing next to. And unfortunately, like I mean, Tom Cruise in like Top Gun was short in that movie. If you ever see him like when he's next to Goose, he's shorter. Yeah, he's a short guy. But in every other movie, if you ever see him, he's always taller than the next person.
You can't tell.
It's just angles and like.
He's always running. Why are you always running, Tom Cruise?
He's fit though. I'll tell you this. Tom Cruise broke his. I think what was it? He broke his wrist or his leg or something while doing.
He does his own stunts.
He's crazy.
Yeah, you got to give people credit for that.
I mean, well, he almost got broke by Oprah by jumping on her couch. I'm just saying.
I'll never forget that. That was like her big moment. Huh? Not her only big moment, but one of their biggest moments.
It's like the most talk. Like people like. Who never even saw it. Like I saw it when like it was like aired.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it was Katie Holmes, right? He was excited that he was dating her.
Well, wasn't she like super young though?
I feel like
I think she was like.
Here's my theory. Young. I think she hadn't slept with him yet, and he was like, "What can I do to let her really know I'm crazy about her?" I'm going on Oprah today
by showing that he's actually crazy. Yeah.
I think he was. He's trying to sleep with her, and he's like, "I'm gonna tell the world how much I love her," and she'll be like, "Oh my God, I love you too." It's my theory. There's no reason he should be that happy. Trying to get Katie Holmes in bed.
That and the other thing too is like, that was like when he started doing what was that religion?
Scientology.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Those people are kind of crazy. Like I don't know if anybody.
I watched some documentaries, man. Leah Remini has a really good show on it, and she talks about escaping Scientology. She literally escaped she didn't escape. She literally got out of it, which apparently is an escape. But she had a person on her show that literally escaped the compound. In like California, I guess there's this Scientology compound, like Golden Gates and stuff.
Kind of like.
And she hid in the trunk of a guy filming a commercial to promote the area. Mm-hmm. She hid in his trunk. That's how she escaped the compound.
Was it like a compound like Waco? Kind of like.
Yeah, kind of like that. Way nicer. These guys have money.
Yeah, they got millions.
Yeah, but millions. And it's in the documentary. They show they show the actual commercial those guys were filming that day.
And that she escaped.
And she shows her walking behind the scenes with them. And then she's telling the story while they're showing the clip. And she's like, yep, that's the trunk I got in. And then she tells the story. And she literally stayed in the trunk of this vehicle for like 4 or 5 hours. When they pulled over to the gas station, they popped out. And she's like, please don't take me back there. It gets wild.
Oh, yeah, I would have called the cops. I would have been like, dude, what? Like, no, you need help. Not the fact that you're in my trunk. It's like, you need help.
Yeah, that culty stuff freaks me out, man. Like, that's kind of what that is.
It sounds weird. Like, New Mexico, like people are like, oh, New Mexico, there's nothing like that. There's some weird.
Is there?
Yeah.
I haven't seen any culty stuff
We
yet.
have Mennonite here. Like I saw them the other day walk around the park. Like Mennonite, like they're like Amish.
Oh, Jesus.
But they like I saw their ladies walking. Like they don't have to wear like the bonnets or nothing, but they have the long dresses. And I saw them walking around Young's Park.
I'm gonna interview one,
dude. It would be amazing. I doubt you could. I mean, they're very like strict when it comes to stuff, but it would be amazing.
Yeah.
And I know we have weird communities like that. I know we got I know we have some. This is funny being codes. I've ran into a hippie commune, and that's down south, and like they're all hippies, like all of them, like super hippies. Like they grow their own food and weed and.
It's a real hippie,
real hippie. Yeah. But like all that stuff, and like one of them, like he really wanted to hug me. I was really weirded out, bro. Bo gets me, and I'm like, this dude was like, I was like, bro, go shower.
Yeah,
like,
just fist bump.
I was like, dude, this is COVID too. I was like, bro, stay away from me. Stay away from me. You know, like
see, COVID gives you an excuse now. You can just tell people you're uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like and usually they'll respect it. But.
What was it? The Demolition Man. Remember how they don't actually touch. They just kind of
like waved.
Yeah,
with the headset on.
That's what it needs to be. Yeah. That's what it needs to be now that we COVID. Like I'm gonna Air 5 you. Like I'm gonna Wi-Fi you from across the room. Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's the new wave.
Oh yeah.
We're hitting about time, man. I like to keep them around. We're about an hour and a half, man.
Oh, honestly, it didn't even feel like that. It goes.
It flies by. I meant
we had
back.
some.
Jesus,
it flies by.
Yeah, you knew what you meant. What I knew.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say though?
No, I mean with the stories, like I know I got some crazy ones. I'm all over the place. But
no, that's it. Time goes by fast. Let's do. It's been so much fun having you and catching up. We should do another one soon.
We should.
Yep. Hey, thanks again, brother.
Hey.
All right, Jacob Morales, everybody, and we're out.